One of the most interesting experiments I went into for the fall 2021 anime season was jumping into Muv-Luv Alternative. Now let me be perfectly clear. I don't really have any experience with Muv-Luv in general except for watching Swords and Marken. So I kind of had an idea of what I was getting into, though not necessarily what actually unfolded. But yes, a big question that I got quite often was, why are you watching this when you haven't checked out any of the visual novels? And thankfully, I have to say, despite the fact that I don't have any pre-knowledge of this series, besides the fact that there's aliens attacking people, I really wasn't lost. And I really did find myself thoroughly enjoying this series, despite there being a lot of question marks flying up in the earlier segments. But I think what comes of that is me being able to really tell people that have never been into the visual novels what you can find here, what is actually in Muv-Luv Alternative that you would actually want to check it out. But this is my review of the 12-episode series that aired in the fall 2021 anime season. Thankfully, they have a second season that will be coming in fall of 2022, and I'm absolutely thrilled by that. It was a series adapted by Studio Graphinica, Yumita Company, and Flagship Line, which I'm assuming one of those is probably just strictly for the CGI, but this is my thoughts on the series, so let's jump right into it. There's a couple facets to really kind of establish when we get to talking about what Muv-Luv Alternative is about. The first aspect is explaining Shirogane Takeru. He's the main character of the show. Now, interestingly enough, he's from a parallel world. So the world that he's in right now is not his own world. Now, everything of the world is the same. It's still Earth. He still has plenty of people around him that have all existed around him in the previous world. It's just that they're all doing different things. Because this world is being attacked by Beta, his classmates, his teacher, everybody he knew from his previous existence in this other parallel world exist here. His classmates are now soldiers. His teacher is a scientist. So he's familiar with the people, they're just not the same people in a sense. The second weird thing that comes to this whole situation is that Shirogane is able to repeat time. As it opens up with him in a mech suit, he's fighting a Beta, he ends up getting attacked, and then suddenly he finds himself back in time, reliving the scenario. Now, while it's not like something like Live, Die, Repeat, where it's just him basically trying to fix the situation, he dies and it resets again, and then he tries to do it again. It's really a case of he reset this one time at the very beginning, and now he's trying to fix the situation that's up ahead of him. And now, while he doesn't have full knowledge of what's happened in the future, it slowly comes to him over time. Now, the third aspect of the story is the world that he's in. This world that's being attacked by Beta. Like I said before, it's the same world as what he has before, a parallel world, but in this world, back in 1973, the Betas came from the moon to the Earth and started attacking. And these are big, huge alien creatures that are just decimating everything. Europe's already been wiped out very quickly. It explains that in 1998, the Beta have actually come to Japan and they're starting to hit the shores of Japan. And then it jumps to 2001, in which we meet Shirogane. Now, having this knowledge that Shirogane is from a parallel world, he's now in this world, he has knowledge of the future in which mankind will enact this Alternative 5 and flee the Earth. He pushes forward to make contact with Kozuki, this professor, who's actually head of Alternative 4, this project that is like the last beacon of hope to save mankind before they enact Alternative 5 and flee Earth. And after establishing with her that he is from this other alternative world, that he has knowledge of the future, she eventually agrees to work with him in order to make it a success. And she uses her power to get him enlisted as a trooper inside of this UN base. And again, the two of them work together in order to make this Alternative 4 a success. Along the way, he's meeting his other classmates that are now soldiers that are all trained to pilot these huge mechas that fight the Beta. And slowly over time, things are kind of being revealed to Shirogane that he's trying to enact to prevent certain things from happening that'll eventually lead to this bad end. So my thoughts on this series. I wasn't really sure how I felt about this series about halfway through it. I liked the setup. I liked the concept of here's the Beta. This is this looming threat that is seeking to end mankind. Slowly unraveling the aspects of Alternative 4 and what Kozuki is currently working on in order to achieve. These different things that are coming to Shirogane's mind that he's trying to, I guess, find ways around or apply his knowledge of his previous world into this world in order to overcome. At face value, Shirogane is a pretty solid character. I mean, he's got his desires to save this world. Despite the fact that he has no real connections to the world itself, you have him slowly over time as he's getting closer to his comrades and Kozuki. He has this desire not only to get back to his homeland, but also to secure the future of the world that he's in right now. And there was a looming mystery about the whole situation. What is Alternative 4? What is its whole purpose? And what he himself can actually do in order to help it. And the earlier segment of this series is very much so focused on kind of introducing the characters, but also giving Shirogane a purpose. Because not only is he there without any of his own control, but at the same time, he does have things he's attached to in his previous life that are now sort of in front of him, and some not in front of him, that he's ultimately conflicted with. But not only that, but also attachments to things that he doesn't realize why there's an attachment there. There's a specific girl named Kasumi, who's this mysterious girl that he obviously knows who she is based on a previous reset, but he almost feels a natural feeling with that person, and he doesn't really understand why. But he does know eventually that she is significantly tied in with this alternative 4 that, again, we don't really get too much of an idea of what it is. But what I find kind of funny, but also interesting at the same time, is with Shirogane working with Kozuki, he's able to employ knowledge that he has from his previous world. Now, bear with me here, but it makes perfect sense. In a lot of cases where you have somebody, he's essentially isekai'd, using knowledge from their previous world, it's typically, there's soap that this world hasn't made yet that obviously people would love to have. There's sanitizing, there's lotions, all these things that this world just does not know yet. Will absolutely love this. What I loved is when he kind of introduces technology from his previous world in just theory alone. Because obviously this world has been at war with the beta since 1973. So what thing happened since 1973 that this world doesn't have? Video games. And what did video games do? There's technically 2 elements that video games could actually technically benefit them in this world. Ease of use and cancels. So this world technically has robots. They have technology for robots. Those robots have software. Pilots have to utilize controls to manipulate that software in order to fight the beta. But while you might mock the concept of video games, they do bring benefit to this type of stuff. And again, ease of use and canceling. And he kind of introduced these 2 concepts to Kozuki to implement them into the software of these mechas, and it is something that's actually extremely beneficial to them, and slowly over time sprinkling in the politics of the world itself. Again, he's within this base that's a UN base that's on the land of Japan. And as we see later on in the series, there's a lot of politics surrounding that as we get this rebel force that it ultimately starts to kind of throw a huge wrench in the whole mix. And this is funny enough, the point in which I both was unsure I would enjoy this series, as it really does seem like the entire series opens up to be so focused on Alternative 4, making it a success and preventing Alternative 5, that at some point you have a huge amount of infighting that just gets in the middle of everything. These rebel forces essentially want to make the Empress of this land of Japan the sole power of the land, to get rid of the military, to get rid of military control, to get rid of the government itself that all seem to not put the Japanese people first. Then you have the US forces getting involved, you have the UN getting involved. All these things start to kind of really cloud the situation when you have Beta over here literally threatening the life of all mankind, and yet here we are fighting each other. And like I said, at first I'm like, oh gosh, we're doing the infighting thing. Why? Why are we doing this? But you know what? This is the point in which I realized I absolutely love this series. Because it made me realize that this writer, despite me not really thinking they were going to do much with the characters themselves, really started to develop the characters. Really started solidifying the characters as some of my favorite characters in storytelling. Because so many of the characters surrounding Shirogane are so wrapped up in the politics of this world, each one of them have a conflict that eventually comes to the forefront. But not only that, but the fact this writer was able to create so many sides to a battlefield that were all technically right was shocking to me. The fact that you can have so many sides to a conflict and technically agree with every single one of them, I think is masterclass writing. That is the stuff that I absolutely love when it comes to a conflict. To not just have, oh, well, there's the bad guy. That's obviously the evil genius that cackles and said that they want everything to burn. This wasn't that. Every single person on the battlefield I agreed with. And even the characters themselves agree with it. There's nobody really realizing at some point that, oh, this is all this person's fault. Everybody has purpose, patriotism, love, protection, goals, family, people. Everybody has a reason for what they do. And what that does is allows the viewer, like myself, to really get invested and not really want any side to lose. You realize that no matter who ends up taking the shot, it's justified and it's tragic at the same time. And I think for the writer to pull that off out of nowhere absolutely floored me. So yeah, despite my misgivings of the second half of this series, I ate it all up. And it easily pretty much corrected any concern that I had for the series. Because technically early on, with the first half of the series, it was really hard to gather exactly what this show wanted to do. Again, I kind of assumed it would be a live, die, repeat scenario, stop the future kind of thing. It got a little bit, interesting when it starts getting into his connection with the previous world, Kasumi and Kozuki, and really kind of getting into developing Alternative 4. But I don't think I really gained respect for the writing until we got that second half, and I really started realizing, despite infighting frustrating me, it was infighting that I understood, and I supported every side of the battlefield. And that easily cemented itself as some great storytelling that I latched onto. Additionally, kind of creating development for all the characters that I hadn't seen before in the series that has me extremely excited for a second season. And thankfully, again, us getting that second season already announced for 2022, I am absolutely thrilled for. I cannot wait to see where the story goes from here. I'm excited to see what they do with the characters. And yes, at the same time, I'm still fearful of the eventual point in which we get Swordsmark in and everybody starts dying, but we'll see. That's my thoughts on Muv-Luv Alternative. I hope you guys enjoyed my review. If you did, leave a like down below, comment, let me know what you thought of this series. If you're going to check it out, subscribe if you haven't already, share this video if you can, support us on Patreon, or throw our tips link in the description below. Definitely appreciate everybody does. And a special thank you to everybody that supported me on a weekly basis as I did impressions on this series. It was a lot of fun hearing back from you guys, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this review as well. With that said, y'all take care.